Hello, and welcome to an 18-part series where I explain each legion and their Primarch during the Great Crusade. First, Legiones Astartes, Dark Angels. Stark and uncompromising, the Dark Angels were the first of the Emperor's legions and the truest to the mold from which the Legiones Astartes had been struck. They were killers, and the purest and most refined kind, for whom there could be no destiny but a lifetime of war and death in the name of the Imperium of mankind. They did not build empires, made no attempt to master the ways of peace or the subtle skills of the artist, craftsman, or diplomat. They offered no excuses for their nature and made no compromises in the pursuit of their assigned duty, shirking neither the price they paid in blood nor that paid in infamy and solitude. Their greatest battles are to be found in no catalogue of compliance or roll of honour. No scholars or poets sing of these glories, or remember those fallen in their prosecution, for they fought against foes so monstrous that it was deemed necessary that all mention of them be erased from history. Such was the nature of their service, not only to be prosecutors of the Great Crusade, but also to serve as the Imperium's most potent bulwark against the unknown terrors that lurked in the dark between the stars. Primogenitor, Lion L. Johnson. Cognomen, Prior, the Angels of Death. Archaic, the Uncrowned Princes. Observed strategic tendencies, none. Within the Legion, there was at least one host or order dedicated to each discipline of war. Noteworthy domains: Caliban, Grimaya, Terran enclaves. Allegiance: Fidelitas Constantus. The Emperor's first sons. The heraldry of the Dark Angels proclaims their lineage as the first of the Emperor's Legiones Astartes, but other than that simple fact, little is known of the origins of the Legion and its initial gene stock. What is known with some certainty is that all of the many breeds of these post-human warriors, the Dark Angels, were conceived by the Emperor as a template for those that would follow. Distilled from the gene seed of the most stable of all his Primarchs, and without any attempt to foster specific traits or curb the eccentricities of the stock from which they sprang, the diversity of their origins brought a wealth of disparate martial traditions into the fledgling legion. During the early years of the Great Crusade, they were amongst the largest and most heavily armed of all the Legiones Astartes. They fielded more warriors under arms, maintained a larger fleet, and had access to weaponry more powerful than any of their brother legions at that time. They learned and specialized in all forms of war, and their knowledge was passed on to the other legions. They won countless victories for humanity in this formative age, the most notable perhaps being the Rangdan campaigns, wherein more than 80,000 of the Legiones Astartes and uncounted millions of Imperial Navy gave their lives to hold back the hordes of Xenos Rangda and their cohorts, preserving the fledgling Imperium from destruction. It was during this time that the Legion was to be reunited with its Primarch, Lion L. Johnson. The hexagrammaton. The Dark Angels maintained a secretive and esoteric schema of heraldry and rank, each warrior being a member of an order, an organization of warriors which transcended legion structure and a wing, as well as in some cases, several other internal circles or councils outside of the traditional legion hierarchy. In the days before the coming of the Lion, the ranks of the First Legion were organized into 6 hosts, known as the hexagrammaton, each with its own combat specialties and tactical doctrines, developed by veterans of the Legion over long campaigns. Later, after reuniting with their Primarch, these hosts would be refined and reorganized to become the 6 wings of the Dark Angels. The wings were structures which sat outside of Legion rank, created such that warriors of many disciplines were available to respond to the need for their expertise in any war zone. The Storm Wing incorporated the majority of the Dark Angels line infantry, training battalions and mobile ordnance batteries within its ranks. The members of this wing were drilled in the discipline and stalwart arts of close order warfare and set-piece battles, unshakable in defense and resolute in attack. Its veteran warriors were the core of the Legion's infantry companies, capable of executing complex maneuvers and formations under the heaviest enemy fire. When the legions took to the field of battle en masse, the veterans of Stormwing stood in the front ranks, serving to steel the resolve of their brethren and to oversee the execution of orders in the chaos of battle. The Deathwing excelled in special operations alongside other units of the Legion, especially as a counterpart to the more numerous Stormwing, with a multitude of sub-disciplines within its ranks. Most renowned among its specialists were those dedicated to the role of line breakers, elite veteran infantry who served to shatter the enemy's formations and create openings for other units or wings, and the lifeguard cadre deployed to protect officers during battle. These lifeguards were especially prominent, with few high-ranking officers in the Legion lacking a small force of Deathwing veterans sworn to give their lives to ensure their safety. The Raven Wing were based around the principles of mobile attacks, of strike and fade tactics, and skirmish warfare, and excelled at the use of light skimmers and aircraft, but also incorporated significant infantry assets. These were mostly reconnaissance squadrons, though among those were infantry units specialized in the use of drop pods and other orbital assault doctrines. When the Legion gave battle to a foe that sought to evade or confuse them, or one whose overwhelming power compelled them to counter it with speed, it was the warriors of the Raven Wing that took to the fore. The Dreadwing are perhaps the most feared of all the branches of the hexagrammaton, garnering a reputation that far outweighed the Wing's influence within the Legion. The Dreadwing was composed of those whose role was the utter annihilation of the enemy, the salting of the earth, and breaking of worlds. When called out from the ranks, the initiates of the Dreadwing were experts in the brutal tactics of massacre, purge, and the deployment of exterminatus-class weaponry, though many also specialized in the use of terror as a weapon. The Iron Wing was dedicated to the use of overwhelming firepower on the field of battle, to confound the foe by means of barrage and conflagration, to defy their riposte with inviolate armor and carry the day by means of force alone. It was not a subtle wing, composed as it was of the majority of the Legion's armored vehicles, heavy dreadnoughts, and field artillery batteries. They excelled at the breaking of fortresses by superior firepower and the rapid onslaught of massed war engines to overrun and annihilate an unprepared foe in the open field. The Fire Wing was the smallest of the 6 wings of the hexagrammaton, dedicated to all the bloody subtleties of warfare. It was the hidden blade of the Legion, the knife in the dark and the blade against the throat of the foe's commanders. Within its ranks were to be found an eclectic mix of stalkers, champions, and Moritat killers, all bound by their shared expertise in the arts of blade and knife, duelists and assassins without peer. The Primarch, Lion L. Johnson, was reared upon the dark forested world of Caliban, and it was from that planet's culture that the Dark Angels draw many of their knightly traditions. Located to the far galactic north of Terra, close to the dark and warp-tainted regions of space, Caliban was a planet of vast primal woodlands and savage great beasts, which preyed upon the feudal peoples of its land. Before the Emperor was reunited with his lost son, Lionel Johnson had risen to the command of a great knightly order and become a master of its military. A superlative and tempered warrior, the Lion took his place at the head of the First Legion. Despite this honored place, the Lion remained apart, for though his strategic skill and talent with a blade rivaled that of Horus himself, The secretive mien of the Dark Angels and Johnson's own taciturn nature often led to distrust. Nonetheless, the Lion proved his ability many times over during the Great Crusade, and even when the title of War Master was given to Horus, his devotion to the Emperor did not falter. It was during the Great Crusade that another momentous event would shape the destiny of the Lion and his legion. In the midst of the Dulan campaign, the impetuous nature of Leman Russ came into direct conflict with the meticulous tactics of Lion L. Johnson. When the Lion claimed a kill which Russ considered his own, the two Primarchs came to blows. The two legions would become rivals, but also close brothers in arms. Both were relied upon by the Imperium to vanquish the most terrible of foes, and trusted beyond all others to enact the grim will of the Emperor when the utter destruction of a foe's works and worlds was required. This has been the Dark Angels of the Great Crusade. Thank you for watching.